Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Heal the Healer Mami Goddaughter Conversations.
Alafia, welcome in. Welcome to another Heal the Healer Mami Goddaughter edition where we have really great discussions um, around just things that we're experiencing in life and different spiritual concepts. So, if you've been here for a while, you know we always begin by giving honor and respect to those who come before us and those who give us the authority to be in this space. So, I want to begin by giving great honor and respect and gratitude to our home temples in Benin and all of the temple keepers throughout the ages who have stewarded this knowledge and protected it and passed it on. I want to give great honor and respect to our great matriarch, Queen Mother Minonae Bujitao Animaso II, the global leader and founder of Nazi Fa Spiritual Institute. I want to give great um, honor and recognition to our home temple here in the States, Nazia Fa Spiritual Institute of North America, and the leader and founder, and my spiritual mother, Mianu Ananasi. I want to greet all of you and your ancestors and the energies that are walking with you. And of course, I want to acknowledge my own ancestors and all of the energies that are helping me on my journey. It's so good to be here. It has been a very, very long week. A lot of craziness going on. I'm not sure if you saw Angel Mianu's message that there was an attempt at a coup in Benin, but everything's okay. Um, she's fine. And I reached out to some other people that I know there, and they seem to be okay right now. I think everybody's just trying to get their bearings. So we're grateful to ancestors for their protection. Um, but how has this week been for everyone else? Um, we are going to have a discussion today around etiquette, right? And depending on where you grew up in the United States and who raised you, um, you might like have some different like cultural customs that you do, but like generally in the States, it's kind of like a free for all. Whereas, in traditional cultures, there's a very like specific way that you interact with, your family members, with the divine, with the outside world. There's very clear like rules and regulations. And for indigenous people, those like rules and regulations are because of like spiritual concepts, like the culture and their spiritual connection are one and the same, which is different here. We separate our spirituality into its own kind of segment that we can decide to like dip in and dip out of. Um, but Mianu did a really great video on how you meet them is how you access them. And so we will watch that and then have a discussion around it. So Agbasi, is the video ready? Okay. Just a second. Has anybody seen the video yet? You could give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. It's been really great having these nice like bite-sized segments. I really like it for my ADHD brain. It's nice to get like a good sized snack of a lesson. I've been enjoying us having these videos to talk about and have discussion around. Oof, y'all, I'm really in my 30s. I feel like I keep just cracking and popping every time I move. Oof.
Wait till them 40s.
No, I'm starting the mobility stretching. Okay. I'm getting my videos together. And pretty soon I'm gonna actually do what I see in the videos. So um, there's a documentary that talks about the importance of mobility. So, yes, yes, yes. All right, here we go.
Welcome everyone to another video. I was sitting here having lunch, or thinking rather, and something came into mind as I was traveling yesterday, and I wanted to do a video about it because it's not something that we know about in the West, that we know about in America. And as an African American that's come back home, repatriated, and also moving forward on my spiritual journey, I wanted to just impart this wisdom to you guys who are trying to take back your culture, right? Um, and so today's video is titled, what did I title it? Hold on, I'm getting too formal. How I Met You is How I Contact You. How I met you is how I contact you. How I met you is how I contact you. Now, you see, I put this on the As You Are in One Thing, You Are in All Things series. And I did it for a reason. And for those of you who don't know, there is a African proverb from a Dogon priest, and it states that as you are in one thing, you are in all things, meaning how you behave, how you look at things, how you do things in one particular area, in one particular instance, in one way of life is how you are in other ways of life. And so that's so true in so many areas that I had to do a series about it. And so, how I contact you, or how I met you is how I contact you, had to be under that, under this series, because it's oh so relevant, right? And as I go into this, you'll see why. So early on in my travel to Africa, it was said to me, when you go and you're introduced to someone, you don't give people your number. There's going to be a lot of people that ask for your number. Don't give people your number. If you need to contact anyone, you go through the person that you met them with, met them through, to contact them. Now, you know me, the Harriet Tubman of her time. I am rebellious, and I just didn't understand. What do you mean? I'm here, I'm on vacation. What do you mean I can't exchange numbers? I can't network, I can't keep in touch? It just seemed ludicrous to me. But you have to imagine, I'm coming from America. We all are coming from a Western paradigm. But as I began to go about my journey, as I began to meditate on that more, and even in that trip, I began to see different things happen. Like people who would give their number out, they would be harassed. Um, they would get themselves into trouble. Those people meant them no good. Um, they ended up, veering off course. There was just a bunch of things that had happened. I don't remember much good happening from the people who contacted or kept in contact with those who they weren't supposed to. It was, I remember thinking it was a sense of protection, as if to say, you have a reputation with me, that person has a reputation with me, and I can protect both sides. I can represent and barter and negotiate for both sides, which is true. And you have to think about that, right? If you go into a new place and you're meeting someone for the first time, you're in a new country, in a city, you don't know someone and you're doing business, you're meeting someone, you're trying to maybe buy or even just go out. You don't know this person, you don't know their history, you don't know their background, you don't know what they're capable of, and they don't know what you're capable of. They don't know your history and they don't know your background. Isn't it better to have someone help navigate the relationship, especially in the beginning, to help be that go between? And even if it is business, because Africa is such an entrepreneurial country, it's not like America, where in America, only a small percentage of the population is entrepreneurial. Most people have jobs, most people have 9 to 5s. Only now is there a renaissance happening of entrepreneurs who are starting businesses. Thank you. Okay. Yes, see. Mhm. Only now is there a renaissance happening of entrepreneurs. Yes, see. And so, because of that, yes, see, because of that, you don't know who you're meeting, who you're interacting with. Who's to say when you try to do a business deal, this person will be honest, this person will be integral, and who's to say that you will be honest and you will be integral? It's the insurance that both sides needs. It's like the escrow, right? But a lot of times, as Americans, we don't like to have someone in the middle. We say cut out the middleman. And I never thought I would be on the side of keeping the middleman, especially as an entrepreneur. Especially as an entrepreneur, I always expected myself to say, no, we're going to do vertical integration. As soon as we start mass producing a product, we will, start producing all the components of that product and knock out the competition. And it's just a business, it's an economics thing. But when you think about socially and you think about relationships, it's not supposed to be that way. In order to be fair, in order to be an upstanding human being, even the way you meet someone is the way you contact them. Meaning, if I come into a place and I meet you through a mutual contact and we want to do business, we want to see each other again, we want to interact for whatever reason, it's through that mutual contact that we should interact. A lot of times you see this with like auto mechanics, you see this with tailors, you see this in business. And I appreciate learning that lesson here. And as I meditated on it, I said, where else have I seen this? Because in our culture, in African culture, the culture is always rooted in some spiritual principle. There's very rarely, if ever, a time where you see a deeply rooted cultural principle that isn't rooted in some spiritual truth. And so maybe you don't know the truth and you need to learn a little more, but there's normally always a truth there. So when I meditated on it more, I said, where have I seen this before? Where have I seen this concept? Where have I seen this principle? And the thing that came to mind was our relationship with the divine world and the way God created us, right? It almost goes to the pure essence of ancestral veneration. When you think of how the all God, whatever name you call the great one, how he created you was through your family line, right? Through your mother and father. If not through your mother and father coming together, if not through your ancestors, you would not be here, you would not be created. And therefore, when it goes to you contacting the divine or going through a channel to the gods, it should be through that same channel. How you met God, how God created you is how you will access him, meaning through your family line, through your bloodline, through ancestral veneration. And so when you sit and meditate on that and you look at how ancestral veneration has been ripped from Western culture, and I say ripped from Western culture, but mainly it's been suppressed from African Americans and masked with religion, however, widely open, widely practiced amongst the society. Okay, you look at the dollar bill, you look at the names on streets, the names of schools, you look at the names of holidays. These are all ways to venerate some ancestor who's no longer here. It's a way to venerate a person and give them good energy, right? And when you venerate that person, when you venerate that energy, it amplifies them and gives them the power they need to be mighty on the other side. Well, what if you did that for your own ancestors? How strong would they be on the other side in order to contact, combat, and fight for you and on behalf of you in the unseen world? And so when you think of how religion in Western society has kind of dim a light on ancestral veneration, you can also see that same premise being in business. In business, like I said a few minutes ago, the number one premise is to cut out the middleman. That's the number one thing. And when you realize, oh my gosh, this is like completely opposite from what my culture teaches me. This is completely opposite than what nature's law is. It makes you want to just sit back and kind of, you know, take it all in and think, well, what else? What else? Right? We're adding things to the list. We're adding things to the list of things that are completely opposite from nature's law and nature's principles. And this is one of them. So think about that for a minute. I'm going to sit here and have my lemonade and meditate on that. Meditate on how the way God met you is the way you should access him, right? And when you think about religion, religion eliminates ancestral veneration. Religion says access God through a son or a prophet or some other line other than your bloodline, other than the way that God created you, right? Which is through your mother and her mother and their mother and the ancestral line. It takes you around to Jesus or around to Muhammad or around to, you know, someone else. And the same is true when it comes to Western capitalistic ideas of business, cutting out the middleman and going straight direct. How they say direct to the plug, right? Direct to the connect. No, this is a part of our mind, a part of our psychology, a part of our way of thinking that needs to be cleaned. We need to know that how I met you is how I contact you. It's a way to protect yourself. It's a way to stay correct and stay orderly. And it's an unseen, unsaid, unspoken rule here in Africa. But when you show that you acknowledge and you know the culture, it will get you points, it will get you respect here. So when you come and you're introduced to a bunch of people and they say, "Oh, how do I keep in contact with you?" You say, "Well, you can just reach me through X, Y, and Z. You can just reach me through this person or that person." That's the correct way to do things, right? Make yourself not easily accessible. Make yourself not a target. Protect yourself. Go through the right way. Go through the proper channels. Okay? So, food for thought, food for thought, food for thought. As you are in one thing, you are in all things. Or for some others of you, as above, so below. Okay? So, until next time, be well.
That was good. That was really good. And I loved how much it tied back to the ancestral veneration portion of Heal the Healer. I know it's been a while since we did the original Heal the Healer workshop, but it was like a direct line. So, what did you guys think of that? The floor is open.
I go. I That really resonated with me. I know that, I mean, so far I've only been to Africa once, which was when I went to Gambia a couple years ago. And I remember everybody that me and my friend met, they wanted our phone number. And I was like, what you want my phone number for? Like the people in the airport, like everywhere, they wanted our phone number. And sometimes I still hear from them occasionally. But I just thought that it was so strange that you want my number. You know what? It wasn't just Africa. Same thing happened when I went to Jamaica. And I was like, why do y'all want my phone number? That's so strange because people that I just meet in passing, I never asked them for their phone number. So I was like, oh, poor baby. I'm the wrong American. I'm trying to get out. I ain't going to tell you nothing good. I'm not going to encourage you to come here. I'm going to tell you that you're better off where you are. I'm going to give you all the horror stories about being Black in America. You don't want to come here. Don't believe the hype. Um, I also found it very interesting when Mianu connected the like the spiritual side of I guess the veneration, or like how we have been taught uh, to try to have direct access and cut out the middleman. It made me think of the individualism versus collectivism thing. Because if I am only concerned about me and how well I do, and if I'm going to make it, um, then it doesn't matter to me about community or about the collective or about trying to maintain a certain type of balance. I'm not going to care about the ecosystem of anything. I just want what I want. And if I do good, that's good for me, which is exactly what we have been taught, even when it comes to spirituality, or the Western version of it when it comes to religion. Um, and so yeah, I like the fact that what she was saying really challenges what we have been taught. And as you go through the process of separating the tear from the wheat, and keeping the meat and spitting out the bones, where it's like, yeah, there are some parts that make sense, but the rest of that is garbage and we need to throw it away. And the key is like recognizing the parts that need to be thrown away once you realize that it's not helpful to you, even if you've been told that it is. Alafia, alafia, alafia.
Yes, those were such good points. When she was talking about it, what came to mind was just thinking about um like good. And like being a child of light, right? Which means that you are for the protection and growth of life, right? And when we are when we're cutting out the middleman or not going through the way that we have met someone, that is like a form of like killing life, right? It's like a breaking of a connection versus when you meet someone new and then you meet someone else through them, it's an expansion of a network and a strengthening of those bonds. And so I find it very interesting that a lot of Western ways are self-destructive, and very isolating. Um, and it's very interesting to be able to recognize and see that in like every aspect of the way that different cultures like run and work. And it's not on a conscious level. I mean, we are conscious of the ways that things in America are trying to literally kill us. Like there's all these different lawsuits that are going on, and it seems like more and more people are getting hit to it. But, just the undercurrent of the way that societies move and individuals move, it's very, very interesting and it's very telling of what their core connection is, if it is life or if it is death. Welcome in, Miss Tanisha. It is so good to see you. We are having a discussion on a video that Mianu just put out on the YouTube. It talked about how you meet someone is how you access them. This is a very like basic tenet in Africa in traditional cultures over there, and so we're just having discussion on like the impacts of that. But does anybody else have anything that they want to bring to the discussion? Alafia, Alafia, Alafia.
You're on
Laughing.
mute. I thought, see. Oh, sorry.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. Go,
But
no,
I
go
just I
ahead.
saw her mouth moving. I thought she was talking. I was just trying to let her know she was on mute. My bad.
Go. Yes, I was on mute. Okay. I thought I clicked the button. I'm sorry. So, yeah, this video, I really like this video because it really shows the connection between culture and spirituality. And just a lot of the times when I'm, observing how we've learned how to interact with spirituality growing up, let's say in religious households or whatnot, spirituality or religion was something that's very separate than how you live your daily life, right? So it's like you live your life, Monday through Saturday, and then you go to church, and that's when you are introduced or you're living in a spiritual way, and even the let's say the etiquettes, the cultural, values that you have are in some ways we could probably have a conversation on how it is ingrained in the culture, but for a lot of ways it's not so much ingrained in the culture. It's like set in a separate box, like this is how you act culturally and this is how you act spiritually, and there may be a little bit of crossover, but it's not foundational. And in African culture, it is spirituality is foundational. So I do love that the link between spirituality, ancestral veneration, and that connection between us and God being our ancestors, really being reflected in how you meet people every day, how you do business every day. Those who have provided that connection, you honor that connection and go through that connection for further interaction. And so I thought that part was really profound and interesting. And I think that is minimalized in Western culture. It's kind of like, well, how do I avoid corruption? This person is standing in the middle. They're taking a piece of the pie. They're, that mistrust is there. And one of the reasons why we do skip the middleman, but, having finding value in establishing connection, I also thought about it like, wow, that's really actually establishing community, right? And that's one thing that we don't easily establish, but have we had those foundational etiquettes, maybe our community would be a lot stronger, a lot bigger, given checks and balances for corruption. But it's definitely something to think about. I feel.
Alafia, Alafia, Alafia. First of all, I just miss everybody. Hi, I've been real busy. Um, wow, this is a good topic. I say that more so because I've been going through this all week, meeting people, new people, but standing in my truth at the same time, knowing that some of them, I guess, aren't receiving of my truth. But more so, yeah, over in America, and it'll make or break you as far as if when you're meeting people, what you're trying to do or your intentions behind or their intentions behind it. And I think this is a really good topic. I'm just soaking it all in. Um, yeah, a lot.
Bro. It's funny that you say that. I met someone earlier this week who it was a husband and wife, and they were entrepreneurs, and I we ended up talking about how important it is to like network and refer people to other people. And then I had brought up how, and when we do that, when you have a referral from someone, it like really holds you accountable to like keep your good integrity and like go your absolute hardest, even if like you're tired. And I mean, in general, we try to like do our best, but when you know you were referred by someone, it's like if you don't do a good job, then you know somebody else is going to hear about it, right? And so even if you're tired, that might give you that extra push to make sure that you're like producing quality work. And I think that's something that is like lost here in the West. Um, and like because people don't like to have accountability or they're quick to cut people off. However, if you have a completely interconnected network that keeps you accountable, and it also it it keeps you it gives you support. And like sometimes we don't hear, like people don't like to be like on their ear, as Mianu says, like they don't want to have to deal with their shortcomings. But when your network is completely interconnected, then you're gonna have a lot of people coming to you and being like, hey, what's going on? I heard that you didn't complete this thing, or you said this, or you did that. And it can be overwhelming sometimes, but also it's like that's a way that you show people that you care. Like when you truly care about someone, you're going to hold them accountable and make sure that they're doing their absolute best. And it's also a way to like make sure that someone's good, because it's like you usually, perform on this certain level and you're not, hey, what's going on? Is everything good? Is everything okay with you? Um, or also when you have a network, you could be like, hey, I'm actually not able to do this, but I know someone who can. And I think that our community, like personally, African Americans, we used to have a very strong sense of this. We always knew somebody who could help somebody else out. I think that desegregation really messed with that. Like it broke our bonds. So, but yeah, I think like as a community, we used to be that way. I think desegregation and then also that young epidemic really messed things up, where it was like you couldn't trust people anymore. There were people who like were very trustworthy, but then when that drug got a hold of them, it like really devastated things. And so it's unfortunate. But I do feel like I'm seeing pockets of that community and networking reforming, like in our community group, uh, um, are starting to rebuild those bridges and have those connections. For those of you who are watching later, Bossy put in the chat, crack is the root of all evil, t-shirts coming. But what do you guys think about the spiritual component of it? How, I mean, even the name of the series, as you are in one thing, you are in all things. So do you find that you're good at keeping that network and keeping that connection in your regular life? Do you see a correlation with that in your spiritual life? Are you going to your ancestors or are you going directly to God? Like what's going on? Are you seeing correlations on your behavior in both of those realms? Lafayette.
I go. I definitely see a correlation in how we were taught to interact with God, right? When thinking about, well, I can only say Christianity, but when thinking about Christianity, it's like when you're praying directly to God, right? And when they talk about your relationship, do you have a relationship with God? Like direct relationship with God. And it really removes your ancestors and replaces them with either a direct connection to God or a connection through another intermediary. Jesus, Muhammad, whatever, whatever. It completely removes your ancestral line. And when Miano explains how we come into existence through that ancestral line. That's the path that God is using to create you, to access you, to give you all of the things, all of the attribute, everything that you have is through that lineage. Because you weren't birthed through Jesus, right? You weren't birthed through Muhammad. Like these are not your. This is not your bloodline. This is not the way that God has chosen to create you. And I think it's beautiful because it's like there are many paths. Every single person has their unique pathway that God has chosen to access them because everybody's bloodline is different. Everybody's bloodline has, different attributes, and God is accessing them through those attributes. But even though it's different, it's all the same. It's all through your ancestral lineage, and we're not taught to go through your ancestral lineage or your ancestors to get to God. We're taught that basically, like, there is no hierarchy. You don't even have to go through Jesus. You just go straight to God. You know, if you do go through Jesus, that's great. But you can form a relationship with God. Like it's really how do I say? It's reinforcing the opposite of what not only African traditions is, but opposite of nature. And we get so confused in that. And so I can see that trickling down to, like you said, as we are in one thing, we are in all things. If I think I can dismiss myself, well, that's a whole nother self-worth thing. But then I can dismiss whatever connection and go straight to the source. That means that I do that in everything. I could see that being done in religion. I can see that being done in business. I can see that being done with your interpersonal relationships. It it really is like a dismissal of who you are, and like you're not honoring who you are in your uniqueness. And I think that leads to a lot of like disassociation. Yeah, I'm probably going off a tangent, but a lot fear.
I go. I know that for me, I am steadily working towards coming out of that because you get taught a certain way of how to pray. Like there's a formula to be able to pray and have your prayers heard, and God acts and moves on them. Um, and having that drilled into my head and then praying that way for most of my life, I have to catch myself with certain things, especially about like approaching the throne of grace with humility and all this, and starting off your prayers with God, I'm as humble as I know how, your broken servant, like all of this stuff that we are taught about, where it's so much emphasis on our humanity and on none of our divinity. Um, because we have been programmed to believe that God is outside of us instead of us just being an extension of God. And it's like bits and pieces that are thrown in there where it talks about it, but it's never really emphasize the way our humanity is emphasized and how broken we are as people and how desperately we need the Lord to make it work because we can't do nothing on our own. Like that is the stuff that is really drilled into our head and into our psyche. So I am always working towards coming out of that and changing my prayers from begging to just speaking it into existence, where I'm not going to sit here and keep begging God for something that it is within I can do this. Now, I may not be able to abracadabra or wiggle my nose. It's going to take some effort on my part, but I don't need to be trying to lay prostrate, beseeching the Lord and start speaking in tongues in order for this thing to get through. Um, and so I definitely have been working on coming out of it. um, I also was thinking about with what Mianu was saying, thinking about like the power of community, where she was saying, "As you are in one thing." So then, if we are communal beings, where we thrive on relationships, you take a person and have them be alone, and they don't have anybody to talk to or interact with, it messes with your mental health because we are made to be able, we got to interact with somebody. Even in, what was that movie that Tom Hanks was in, where he was talking to that ball? I forgot the movie, but he was like alone on an island. He was on like a desert island and started talking to that ball. Like that ball became his friend. Yes, Castaway. Because we need I need an outlet. Even if the thing don't talk back to me. I'll take a gerbil, a bird, a dog, a ball, because we need that. So if that is how we are as humans in the physical realm, I feel like it only makes sense that community is also important in the spirit realm, and that working together, because at some point these bodies are going to expire. We won't be here. And so I think it definitely works to our advantage to already be working on and building up relationships so that when we are on that side, we can continue. And it's not like well, it's not like trying to start over, because it was already there. Uh, and it also made me think about like growing up in church and them talking about when you get to heaven, everybody's going to have a mansion. And that always to me just sounded so wasteful. Like every single one of us are going to have a mansion. I don't even want a mansion now. That doesn't make any sense to me, to be in something that huge. I remember not by myself. Um, I remember a few years ago, my ex-husband and I, we were in a 3-2, but it was just the two of us. And there was a lot of times, like if somebody was at the door I realized like it take me a lot longer to get to the door here than when we were just in a 1-1. It was like more stuff to clean. It was more stuff to be. I was like, why do we have all this space? This doesn't make any sense to me. And at first, before moving in there, we thought it was a great idea. We're gonna have all it. Man, as soon as that lease was up, we were like, can we at least get a 2-2? Because this is too much for just the two of us with a 3-2. And so when I think about that, I feel like that's that individualism again of everybody having a mansion. So are we going to get together? Are we still going to have like cookouts? Are we still going to meet up at auntie house or at grandma house or something? Like, how do we decide whose mansion we're going to go to interact with each other? I always thought about that growing up because to me, it seems like that would be the most impactful part of being in heaven is to be able, like, what's the point in feeling like you want to make sure you see me in heaven and you beat me over the head with these verses because you want me to be saved so that we can all be to heaven and then we all are in our own mansions individually? Are we talking? Like, what are we doing? Outside of when they used to tell us that we gonna praise God, we gonna worship him all day and all night. And I was like, that don't sound like fun either, but I digress. Alafia, Alafia, Alafia.
Listen, I gotta give a round of applause on that. Laugh, because when I was growing up, my father was a minister. And when I tell you, we stayed in church 25/8. It didn't even make sense anymore. And I was always drawn to the book of Revelations. And I always wondered, well, why don't they preach on this? Well, why can't I ask questions? But I'm supposed to know everything. But why can't I question this? Why can't I know this part? Why do we never touch this book, that book, and this book? But then going and doing my own research, I come to see like those untouchable books that you never heard about behind the pulpit, but you know was in that good book. It was exposing things that they didn't want us to know off rip. It's like the government, the church house, they condition your mind to know and they embed in you and want you to believe only what's necessary for the house of God, for us to build. Okay, but I'm building this house for this church. This is a house of God. Okay, but God's in me. So what's my house considered? Why can't I go in my right? Why can't I go in my living room and do the same study and touch on things that are calling me? You know, things that I'm drawn to. Why can't I go in my own home where God is inside me? I'm possessing house of God. Everybody's a house of God. You just got to tap into it. Then they say, oh, well, learning your inner self, oh, that you're playing God. How am I playing God? You know, when you learn your inner self because you're working with demons. No, this is me. My shadow work is not me working with demons stuck away in my closet. It's tapping on traumas and things that affected the very vessel that I'm supposed to be to step in my purpose. But now this is all wrong. And then you're telling me that it's wrong for me to tap in and conjure and communicate with my ancestors, people that I done touched, I know exist, I know how they work, and I know how they feel, and don't play about me. But it's okay for me to praise, idolize, and worship what you're putting before me, even though we're not supposed to praise, idolize, and worship. Make it make sense, because I'm going to praise and honor my daddy all day. But then you want me to praise and honor this guy, but the book said he looked like this. But y'all telling me he looked like that. This person actually in this verse said this. But you rearranged it, and because this is what you want us to hear you saying in this verse, this is what you're pounding in our brains. Some churches you'll find only preach on certain topics, and that's it. Unless it's the ordained, the head, the 5, 6, 9, 10-fold. However, because there's so many titles now, and I didn't know that you could just up and wake up one morning and say, poof, I'm an ordained apostle. But they do that. especially over here in America. I don't know how it go over there, but over here, yes, you can roll out the left side of your bed and that morning you a minister. You roll out the right side of your bed and then you a whole evangelist, apostle, and he gave you gifts and all this, but your gifts only work for you when you got good gifts. You can work them good gifts to assist and recruit and teach and stand in your truth. Only by that you teaching a multitude and you don't even realize it. Just standing in your truth alone, standing firm in it, not getting into a spiritual discussion, because they always tell you don't get in a discussion of two things: politics and religion. They say if you can't stand firm on what you believe, don't even touch those two topics. I love to play in those two topics because I'm going to either have you scratching your head or saying, no, we can't be friends. And that's cool with me because it's allowing me, by this veil being removed, and I'm steady getting deeper and deeper into my spirituality, jumping rank. I'm going there. I'm in my studies. I'm living in my truth, not just when I'm in my studies, this is my truth, but when I'm in the public, I'm going to portray this so I fit in. No, I don't even care no more. And yes, it's allowing me to actually see, like, a lot of people that I have associated myself with over the years are actually curious. They want to know, they want to learn, but they don't know how to ask, or they don't feel too comfortable. They got questions just like I had questions. And then there's been some that is like, nah, you doing that witchy stuff. You worshiping the devil. You demonize. Okay, well, hey, let's stop there. We can end this. It was nice knowing you. Like, hey, I don't even waste my breath anymore. And I done dragged off into left field. So go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. I'm in on that.
I go. One of the things that I was thinking about as we were having this discussion is like maybe one of the reasons people don't like to or like shy away from working with their ancestors. It has to do with their relationship with themselves and their relationship with their ancestors, right? Like it's so much easier to go to something outside of you, something that's all good, untouchable, all of these things. And especially that mindset of like original sin and like we can never be pure. We can never be like we're just inherently bad. I think that is right in line with the like inferior identity that's been programmed into a lot of us. um and so like when you have, it depends on the type of person you have, right? Like if when you are the type of person who's like afraid of like confrontation or like fixing really deep problems, then you're not going to want to go to your ancestors if you don't have a healthy relationship with your like with family members. You know what I mean? Or especially people before they pass, you had a complicated relationship. You're not going to want to like go to them. Um, and so I think like starting with yourself and like healing your relationship with yourself is so important for you to feel comfortable to be able to even um, have a relationship with your ancestors because it's very personal. Like Lenitra, when you were talking about like the way that we're taught to pray in Christianity and how it's like we have to like degrade ourselves and makes ourselves like small and terrible and all of these things so that then like God can come in and save us. Like that's not healthy. Like to just think that you're like terrible and some type of victim, and that's not what's taught in spirituality at all. Like um, and I think that it takes a really long time. Well, let me not say a really long time. It takes a lot of like consistent effort to be able to like grow that relationship with yourself and with your ancestors and to be able to have like a really honest and open conversation, even with yourself sometimes, because it's like, we know ourselves. We know when we're not trying our hardest or doing our best or not showing up all the time. So like we have plenty of reason not to trust ourselves when we're seeing ourselves and not show up or like accomplish things in certain areas. And so um, when you're having that that strong relationship, um, it's hard to do when you don't have a strong relationship with yourself. I think that like being on your spiritual journey, it'll really make you like it just exposes absolutely everything, right? And like all of this has to do with relationship. And a lot of people don't even realize they don't really have relationships. They might have like transactions or interactions, but like actual relationship, like a lot of us in the West, I don't think have a lot of actual relationships. A lot of things are transactionary, or a lot of things are just interactions. There's not like feelings combined with it, right? Like Mianu talked about how, like, yeah, how there's just like, there's vulnerability that has to go into it, and there's trust that has to go into it. And these are things that have to be cultivated. I feel like.
I'll go. I just think, what was I gonna say? I was gonna say that this question about how we see this reflected in our everyday lives, it reminded me on the spiritual side, it reminded me how people go to when they first start spirituality, when they first start, you know, African spirituality, the first thing they do is they go and look through all the orishas and they say, "Oh, I'm a daughter of," I mean, not even knowing, but I'm a daughter of Oshun, or I'm a daughter of Yemoya, or I'm a son of, Shango. Like they start identifying a lot of their personality traits with those of those deities. And I thought that that was, I mean, and sometimes they're on, like whenever they finally go through their rites of passages, they find that they are what they thought they are. And some don't ever go through it, right? So they don't ever know. But I thought that was interesting because you see people setting up altars for these deities and don't even have an ancestral altar. And I think, and they're giving offerings, they're doing all those things, and I wonder if they knew that none of that is being accepted. Like you're doing absolutely nothing, because those deities recognize you through your ancestral lineage, and that's why you can see, oh, my personality matches that of Shango's, attributes, or my personality matches that of Oshun's attributes. If those deities are actually with you, it's because they gave you those attributes, passed them through your bloodline. And you not going through that, you're doing absolutely nothing. And so that's what it reminds me of, because there's so many of them that do it. There's so many. Even me, when you first like interested, what are you first interested in? You don't know about ancestral veneration in that way, so you look for deities, and then you go down the rabbit hole from there. So that's quite interesting to me. On the personal side, I will say that business, for me, is like business. That before knowing this, I always used to want to cut out the middleman. Always. Like the more ruthless you can be in business, the more like powerful you are perceived in the Western world. So ruthless meaning grab the middleman, get the connection, and cut him out. And that's almost like a value, because you can then say, I have the direct connection. I'm the most influential. I have the power to make X, Y, and Z changes. I then become the source. And I think that's really, um, I think you can get it done that way, but I think you don't have longevity in doing so that way. And we see that in in business all the time, right? I think that's one of the ways that it begins to get ingrained in your personality, cutting out or doing things that are different than the way the divine does things. And I think it's really like how I said before, we separate like spirituality from everyday life. We can be the grimiest human beings and not have accountability in the spiritual side because it's separate. Oh, I go to church. Oh, give my offerings. I do those things. Like spiritually, I'm good inside, but the way you interact in society is not. I think that idea of cutting out the connections that bring you to power is one of those. I forgot what they call that it's like a syndrome or like like a God complex, right? You want to be closest to this source so that one day you become the source. It's like I am God, so why won't I have a direct connection to God? Or I am, CEO. Why do I need any other connections? I am the connection. This is what everybody wants to achieve, and they want to do it independent of anybody else because if somebody else has helped them get to where they are, then it's not, it wasn't in them alone. And so I do see that. I see that a lot. Um, so I think that's interesting. The other thing that I see is like in interpersonal relationships. I don't think that we practice that. I think we used to. We used to. Like, I was reading this one excerpt from like Black people from back in the day. Like, I would say like the early 1800s, no, late 1800s, early 1900s, where if you were seeking a partner, a mate, or whatnot, a friend or auntie or a mom would introduce you to that person, right? They would say, "Oh, Johnny over here is a good guy. You should date him. You should get to know him." And they would introduce you to those people. And when you guys interacted, somebody else would have to be there. Like that person that introduced you would have to be there. And it was a story like they had brought over his older sister had brought over a lady and introduced them. And then they started, talking in the front room, getting to know each other. And while they're getting to know each other, the sister is sitting there watching, waiting, being part, like not interacting, but she's there. And now every time this guy wants to reach out to this lady, he asks his sister. And then eventually he starts to say, well, he asks his sister, I want to start sending her letters. I want to start courting her. And his sister says, okay. And then they begin their independent relationship, letters back and forth, dot, 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 dot. But we don't do that anymore. And I wonder, is it because of our motives? Like, do we not want other people to know? Um, it's just interesting. It's just interesting how things, like why things turned to where it is today with dating, with interpersonal relationships. Is interesting. I feel.
I go. I really love how you brought that up about people wanting to go uh, like straight into claiming specific deities based on like their personality traits. Um, because I had a conversation with my brother, basically really trying to encourage him to just leave certain things alone until he is ready for, well, not ready, but until he has already done other things. And so this is my youngest brother. Y'all have already heard me talk before about my family thinking that we are I don't know how I came out the way I did. I got a family of pretendians, okay? And so they believe that we are uh, native to the United States. We are the actual Native Americans, and like we are not African. I'm like, I that's not sensical, you guys. But no, nobody will listen to me. And so my brother, who believes that he is not in any way, shape, or form African, is interested, like always talking to me about Elegua. And I'm like, you're not making sense, right? Because this is that's African. You don't believe you're African? Like what about as far as you being Native American, what tribe do you come from? Because anytime I try to tell them about what I have found in my own research with the family tree, or when I did African ancestry or the ancestry DNA, nobody want to hear what I got to say because the whole thing they believe is a setup to get Black Americans to believe that we are African when we really not. Who Anyhow, and so my brother started wearing leggings and stuff. I'm like, where did you get these from? Because I am certain that they have not been prayed over. Like these are just from the same store he buy weed from. Why? Take those off. I was like, do you understand like what jewelry is supposed to represent or what it does for you? And do you know the consequences that come with claiming deities that you're not even sure whether or not they claim you? And you don't have an altar like you talk about. The only time I hear my brother talk about our ancestors is if I bring up the conversation or I found out something about, oh, somebody else we're related to or something like that. That's the only time that come up. My brother does not have an altar because his wife is 100,000% certain that all of this stuff is demonic. He had some crystals. She threw them away. I'm like, how you walking around with leggings? She ain't found them yet. Or maybe she just don't know what it is. But I said, that's just jewelry. Those just some beads you bought from somewhere. It doesn't mean anything until it's actually been like it has to be charged with things. There are prayers that have to be said over it. There are rituals that need to be done. It's not just you buy this from the same store that you get your pre-rolls from and and this is gonna do anything. So I just find that interesting that he is so into it, but you're not doing the other stuff. When I was coming out of Christianity, and I'm very grateful for this, everything that was coming to me and just popping up on my YouTube and my FYP, I was coming across people who were talking about don't come out of Christianity and then go straight into something else. Spend time deconstructing and unlearning. And I kept finding people who were emphasizing the importance of ancestors and building a relationship with ancestors because before you do any of that, you need to make sure that your ancestors are going to be okay with you going down that road. And it could be that maybe you are not called to be a part of any ATR, but before you know that, you have to be able to build up a relationship with your ancestors. You cannot possibly believe that you have no type of practice whatsoever in maintaining an ancestor altar, but you think that you're going to maintain like an altar or shrine to to a specific deity, or that you're going to keep up with those things that come with aligning yourself with this spiritual practice, but you ain't did nothing when it comes to your own people. You're not making sense. And I'm like, and I don't even know how you can venerate your ancestors when you don't even believe that your ancestors are who they are. And I'm not denying the fact, especially with us being in Florida, but I don't think it really matters what part. I'm not denying that there may be Native American blood in our lineage. But to pretend as if we just are not after that blows my mind. I feel like it's a lot more people out there like my brother than we know about. And also, uh, Agbasi, I also, when you were talking about like how short-sighted it is, it made me think like how short-sighted it is with cutting out the middleman and not wanting to have that relationship. It's making me think of like how we are witnessing the fall or the disintegration of the American empire. And throughout history, every empire has its rise and fall. So the American empire crumbling and falling apart was inevitable because the same thing happens over and over again. Like before the United States was this empire that came off the back of the British Empire collapsing because it's too much. When you are so short-sighted that all you are concerned about is more power, more land, more resources, and hoarding it, hoarding it, hoarding it. It's not balanced. And at some point, it becomes too much. You have more than what you can really handle. Your military is overextended. You can't, all of that stuff leads to a point where things just start breaking apart and falling apart. And I feel like that is what's happening now when we think about like how we are seeing, and it's been happening for some decades, but to be able to like really start seeing the cracks, where it's not just Black people who see the cracks. We always saw the cracks. We've been saw the cracks. Like we were there like, oh, look at that crack. And everybody was like, that's not a crack. Yeah, it is, but y'all believe me. Now that we have big gaping holes, it's a problem. This has always been a problem. The only reason why certain people care is because now it's coming to their front door. And the system that used to benefit them, even though it was at the expense of others, is now also at your expense. So now it's a problem because it's at your expense, but that is the way it works. Yes, there's a totem pole, but eventually, at some point, everything is always for the greed of, I guess you can fill in fill in the blank. Like when you think about capitalism, racism, all the isms, everything is going towards feeding that. To me, it's amazing that the same thing has happened over and over again for so many centuries throughout time. And people are still like, we still do. You know what? No, that's not amazing. That's the, okay, get rid of that. I'm not amazed by that because when people don't know history, they have no idea that certain things have already happened. Yeah. But it is very short-sighted. And the very thing that I feel like what we are seeing now, the very things that built up the United States to be this great empire are the very things that are now cannibalizing the United States. And China got up next. That's just what I think. I think they next. Alafia, Alafia, Alafia.
I go. Okay, so also I was thinking, let's say, if I play devil's advocate, what about the abuse of power? I think this we've seen it like so many times, even on a micro level, that it pushes us away from this natural way of being. And I mean that on the person, like the business, the cultural level, because to be honest, when I first heard this, I was kind of like how Miana was like, what do you mean I can't network? What do you mean I can't give somebody my number? What do you mean I can't develop, connections on my own? Why do I need a middle person, right? And that to me was kind of like, in other situations, that middle person has abused their power. They've stolen, they've taken, they've blocked. you know, my opportunities or my money, or how many times have you heard of an agent, because the agent's the middleman, an agent taking too much commission, or and now I can't be profitable, taking too much opportunity from me. I say opportunity and they go run with it and do it themselves and cut me out, you know? And it's like those fears that naturally, if we're being honest, they come up. Even down to like, I met, I want to meet somebody and I have to go through you. Well, what if you're jealous? What if you just block it? It's just like you do think about those kinds of things. So it's really important that I think it's really important that spirituality is a part of it, but it's like you have to have a certain level of trust and integrity. And so it also makes you very careful of who is in your network, who are you connecting to. You have to have a really good discernment because it just can't be anybody. There is, again, the risk of abuse of power and abuse of that connection. I don't know. What do you ladies think about that side of it? I
I go. One of the things that was coming to mind is like people are very like quick to judge and not necessarily like take in all of the information. Um, Meaning like they think that they're like so different or so much better than other people, but it's like if you just pause and it's like, how did this person end up to be this way, right? Like that middleman who um, is deciding to take a huge cut. I mean, I guess it depends on what you think, if people are good or bad at their core or whatever, but like what circumstances happened for them to end up that way. Because it might be that you end up being that exact same way when you get that access to whatever information or money or power or whatever, if you're not considering or like seeing the humanity or like learning the lesson. Um, I think about this when it comes to this veneration in general, how we talk about like calling out the names, yes, and pursuing their worth, but it's also a form of veneration is like living their lessons that they taught or that you learned from them because maybe they didn't explicitly teach it to you, maybe you learned it from watching them. I think about that as America as a nation because for me, I'm a youngest, right? And one of the reasons why I was able to really excel when I was younger was because I looked at my older siblings and all the people around me and what they did and didn't do. Like what they told me, like, when they put me on game and told me, do this, do that, this will help you. But also, I looked at their lives and saw the way that they did and didn't do things. And I'm like, ooh, I'm going to do this differently because I see how that's panning out for them. And as a nation, I never understood why we have so many older, like, civilizations around us and we're not taking the best like lessons from all of them. That didn't make sense to me. um, and I think that's like a part of like truly living out veneration is like trying to understand the other person and learn the lessons from it. And I think that people always think, oh, that would never be me, and then they soon find out that it ends up being them, right? Like America started off as this place where, people are supposed to have freedom and be able to do what they want and, praise who they want and blah, 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 blah. And now we see where we're at in this day and age. And it's the same thing that we tried to get away from when it started or whatever. Um, and I think about this a lot when I think about our relationship with Africa and how there's a lot of people in Africa who don't understand why African Americans are the way that they are. They don't think about everything that we've been through and they like want to separate themselves from us. And so I think it's important that we're like learning the lessons and truly being like open to learn and realize that we're all humans, which means we all have the possibility of ending up in whatever position that we're sitting here judging or not wanting to be in. Um, Alafia, Alafia, Alafia.
I'll go. I think that in all things, greed is just unsustainable. I don't think that anything was ever meant or intended for one person or one group of people to have so much more than everybody else. And I'm not just talking about money, because before money was money, just when it comes to resources, it's just not sustainable. That's not how things were ever meant to be. And whenever you think about or you learn about like the other empires, the times when they were doing their best is when things were more evenly distributed. People start getting desperate and then they want to tear down, and then the people who have everything feel like they have to go to more um, I can't think of the word now. That's crazy. They have to go to more, like they have to, I can't think of the word. I hate when that happens. They have to do more to try to protect everything that they have. But the only reason why you have to do more is because you have so much to protect. You shouldn't have that much. That's too much. If you have that much, then that means that there are people who are going without, and you are creating the very situation that you're trying to protect yourself from. That's too much. If people had at least half of what you had, they wouldn't care about the fact that you have more because they have enough and probably a little bit more than what they need to be worried about the fact that you have more than them. They're happy. But then I'm no longer distracted by the fact that you have more because I have nothing. I'm like Whitney Houston over here. And so, yeah, people go start trying to figure out how they can snatch and grab what you have because you have so much, you won't miss it. You can't use all, spend all, keep all. Like it's just not sustainable. And I think that when greed sets in, and I've always wondered how people get that way. There has never so far in my life, I mean, I'm not a baby, I'm not old either, but I'm not, I guess I'm not a spring chicken. I've never wanted something so much that I am willing to rob other people of being able to have in order for me to get. So I don't know what that's like. I'm not saying that I can't be that way because clearly we've seen throughout human existence that people can get that way. But I don't know what that's like. I don't know what that's like to want so much of something that I don't care if my actions are detrimental to other people. So I can't relate. I can't relate to that. I don't want nothing that much, not even money. I don't even care about money like that. I just want enough to not have to be worried about it. That's it. When you have to worry about money, it's because I only got this much and I need this, this, and this, but I only got enough for this, not the other thises. Now I got to figure out and do all this math and calculation to figure out how can I stretch, make it last. But when you have enough or more than enough money, you don't have to. I just don't want to worry about money. That's it. I don't need to have all the money in the world. I don't care like that. And I want everybody else to have what they need and then some too. So I don't know. I can't answer that question. I don't know what it takes for somebody to get to that point. I don't ever want to get to that point. Alafia, Alafia, Alafia.
I laugh. I wanted to comment on what you were saying as far as people get caught up so much with money and materialistic things. And honestly, I feel like those are the ones that swear they know it all. Those are the ones that you can't tell anything to, that are so set in their ways. They don't want to learn nothing new. You can't teach them nothing new. And I had put in the comments when you were saying, as far as, oh, I want more than what the next person has. See, the little inner community I think that I've built up, we do more barter and trading than anything, because it's like we all realize, like with our journeys and our paths in life, that you can't take this with you. The best you can do is leave what you can leave to your kids or whomever you got that you're leaving behind when you do leave this vessel we're hosting. So like we do more barter and trading. Like if anybody got skills, I'll trade CMOS for a yard cut, or uh do a retwist for whatever you know how to do. We rarely ever function with the monetary currency. And I'm like, it's good. Like, even in the springtime, I got certain fruit trees in my yard. But like my brother might have vegetables in his yard. Hey, bring me a bag of those and you will trade off, because they've already, and I don't know if anybody, Lenisha, you're from Florida. You're probably aware of the fact that they're not distributing pennies anymore. Now, we've had pennies forever, but how do you just realize that it takes 2.5 pennies to make 1 1-cent penny? Y'all just realize this? Like, come on. So are you going to round up when you're giving me my change, or are we rounding down? No, what they're trying to do is get everybody on those cards so they can track your every move, your every expense, what this household needs more than that household. So when it comes down to it and they're trying to get you into the state where they want you to seek salvation in them, that's when they start removing certain items or making it harder for certain households, because they've been tracking us forever to see this household purchases from this store. Okay, we're going to shut this store down, or we're going to increase this price of this item by 10% to this household, but not that household. You know why we never see the increase? Because we don't use it. I couldn't tell you what the cost is of a gallon of whole milk. I don't drink milk. We do almond milk, soy milk, silk milk. We don't do the dairy. So I couldn't tell you when someone's in the store like, oh, the milk went up. Sweetheart, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. And if I could figure out how to get almond milk without purchasing it from these stores, I would do that too. But ain't nobody doing it like that. So, but yes, I'm they don't realize it, and they should, because you robbing Peter to pay Paul, and that's what happened. I feel like that's what tore down our inner communities to start off with. You got to think Oklahoma is a state in America that has more sundown towns than any other state in America. Do you know why? Because Oklahoma was the state in America where Black communities were making towns that was solely for us. You think Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street, and it was thriving so hard. And they literally, I would like to say they did a township genocide, because they went in and wiped it out, because we were thriving. We had our own schools, banks, theaters, realtors, land. And a lot of the times when they did inter transactions within that only Black community, it wasn't with money. They were bartering and trading. Now, the money came in play when they started dealing with the white folks outside of the communities in different townships. But inside, it was barter and trade. When they talk about the indigenous Indians and all, barter and trade, it wasn't until they got a hold to the system, the monetary currency kicked into play. And people, they just got to open their eyes. Like, again, I'm not the youngest, but I ain't the oldest either. So I know there's always something I can learn, especially in this journey right here. I have a tendency of getting bored with things. Like, I'll join a committee and reach my mark, or become a chairwoman, or become the president of that organization. Then I'm done. Because I'm like, where else can I go? There's no more growth. I can't get anything else out of this. Nobody can answer my questions because I've gone surpassed what they know, or it doesn't seem pointless. But in this spiritual journey, I'm loving the fact that I can build a community of like-minded people, and with the same ideas, the same questions, and the fact that we are able to agree to disagree, elaborate, and break down. And I'm not trying to rant, over talk you, or be combative, or I see you as competition. No, I'm gonna feed off you, you feed off me. As long as our energy's right, we're good to go. Because I'm a mirror of the next energy. I'm not gonna let it change minds, but I'm not going to be so welcoming where you're not so welcoming. And I probably need to work on that, but hey, I'm a work in progress. I'm a work in progress. But yeah, Lenitra, I'm feeling you on that one. So go ahead. We gotta.
I go. I also would like to say, I don't know if you all have seen it yet, or if you're intending on watching it, but the documentary on Diddy that's on Netflix. I did watch it. I definitely am planning on watching it again, but I felt like it was a lot, but one very real spiritual truth that I found that just kept repeating itself was how Diddy wanted to be the he wanted to be the star. He wanted to have the attention. He wanted to be famous, but he did not have any actual talents that could push him into that. And so he was really good off of siphoning off of people's energy and like riding their coattail to where he wanted to go until he was able to get rid of and eliminate the competition and now everything like set the stage for him to be the main attraction, which was what he wanted the whole time. And it was something that he kept doing over and over again, where it was a cycle that he repeated even in his personal life. So it wasn't just his professional life, but even in his personal life, there was a pattern of him, like the women that he got with were always with somebody else when he took them. And so Kim Porter was dating Albie Shore at the time that he started pursuing her. And one thing that did not get brought up in the documentary was the fact that his first son was like his first biological son was Justin, which he had with a woman named Misa. And when he started pursuing Misa, she was dating this rapper back then that was like really popular, like late 80s, early 90s. Um, but Kim Porter had a son with Albie Shore. His name is Quincy. And Diddy legally adopted him. Now, throughout the documentary, Albie Shore is talking. So we can know that Albie Shore is alive and well. How did you get this man to give up his rights in order for you to legally adopt his child? Because Quincy has Diddy's last name. His name is Quincy Combs, and that is his adopted father, but his whole face come from Albie Shore. I said, so it wasn't enough for him to take Al's woman, but he also took his son. What is that about? And this whole conversation, and I'm not trying to necessarily go in that direction of the documentary, but it's making me think about him being that way and siphoning off of people is very much like as far as what we're talking about and being greedy, things got to a point where you have to keep, like you have to maintain that. So the very thing that got you to where you are and that got you to reach the highest heights ended up being the very thing that destroyed and took down this entire empire that you built. And it's just like the greed of it all, of it's never enough. And if I got to take from other people in order to make sure that I continue having more than enough, that ended up being a thing that caused your downfall. I'm just hoping that more people start realizing that it does not benefit us to be greedy. Alafia, Alafia, Alafia.
I go. I haven't seen the documentary yet. I don't know if I will watch it because I know it's going to be a lot. And for me personally, the way my spiritual makeup is set up, I don't insert myself into situations that I know can be a lot. But something that I had heard about Diddy is that his father was some like big gangster person. There was another movie, I think Denzel was in it or something like that. And so then that makes me think about bloodlines and traits and things like this, right? And so it's like, it sounds like Diddy took the stuff his father was into and then amplified it, which within ancestral veneration is what we want to do. However, as being human beings who want to raise our, frequency and do better, um, there were definitely multiple points in his life where he could have chose to do the opposite, right? Because there's always that duality, that two sides. So even if your bloodline is known or good at being, a criminal or bad, that means that you guys would also be incredible at being good and amazing, right? Like if he didn't have such a void in him, right? Like Mianu talks about how existence is full, and when there's voids, we're trying to stuff it with stuff. And he chose like just darkness. If he would have chose light and knew that he had these amazing traits, um, then just think about how many artists could have been lifted up, how much it could have expanded, and so much greatness and good things could happen, like I remember growing up watching Making the Band and like stuff like that, and like I love Danity Kane and Day 26 and all these like artists, and it's like he would like elevate them enough so they have like one good album and then like they drop off the face of the earth, and like now we're finding out how traumatized that they are. And so it's just unfortunate when, oh shoot, not the butter. All right, we just gonna have a little brown butter today. When people maybe don't know or choose not to do the harder thing, like and do the good thing, because a lot of times that is harder, but it's so fulfilling and it has like dividends. It's like what we talked about earlier. When you're making those connections, you're expanding your network, and like you're gonna get referred out. And when you take care of those connections, then your network and your reach just grows bigger and bigger, instead of it inevitably falling, like what we're seeing with Diddy, what we're seeing with the United States, because they were sucking from the connection instead of expanding it and being able to like have a strong, lasting legacy. And like going back, I love that like phrase or that like concept so much of the as you are in one thing, because we always think it's like these huge moments, but it truly is the small ones. When you decide to walk past, you notice a piece of trash and you decide to walk past it instead of pick it up. Like it really is the small things. And like, I'm like, that doesn't put you on the same moral ground as Diddy. But I just mean like when like you are made up of all these small components. And so when you take care of the small, it grows bigger and bigger. And that's the main lesson that like I hear and I think about as we're having this discussion, and just learning from our ancestors or the people that we have relationships with. Yeah, and just being sure to cultivate relationships, right? Like at the very beginning of the call, I had mentioned how when I found out about what was going on in Benin, I reached out to some of the people that I knew when I met there. And like that is building on or adding on to that relationship. And like they really appreciated that. And so we always have a choice. Alafia, alafia, alafia.
I'll go. I think we're at our time. Yep.
Well, I'm going to say farewell, and blessings, and the abundance to each and every last one of you for this upcoming week. And I will see you guys next week, right? Yes? Next week? Okay. I'll see you guys next week. I love you, I love you, I love you.
I go. Ooh, the conversation was so good. I lost track of time. Everyone, have an amazing week. I can't wait for next week and the discussion and what comes up. So yeah, until next time, everyone, be well.